Alright guys, TouchGripper here again today. Not sure which day this video is going to be uploaded, sometime in the week from when I'm recording this on the Sunday, the 8th of September. So it'll come up one day this week, maybe soon, maybe a few days away, because this is a topic which really can spread the test of time. It's kind of a question to you guys and an interesting discussion that we can have on whether young gun players, whether cracked out superstar kind of talents that we've seen come up really strongly in this year's Call of Duty World League in the Black Ops 4 season, will struggle, or to what degree will they fall off, or exactly what will happen in the upcoming season going back to Modern Warfare. It's a discussion we've had in the past from the Infinite Warfare season going into World War II. It's also a discussion we've had rather around experienced players and players who are not typically as good in fast-paced games but really thrive in a slower tactical style, whether they will bounce back and to what degree they will. We've had this happen in the past, given we had World War II, because World War II kind of comes in the middle of the jetpack era, incredibly fast-paced, and then going back to Black Ops 4, which is arguably the most fast-paced Call of Duty ever. A couple of you guys have asked me why, when I consider Black Ops 4, I don't really consider it a boots on the ground. It's because it's a different type of boots on the ground game. Technically, it's boots on the ground, but you've got people with grapples flying around the map. You've got sliding, super sliding around corners. You can jump really high. Technically, it's boots on the ground, but with a 5v5 as well. The gameplay is incredibly fast-paced, and honestly, I think a lot of the pros would agree it plays more like a jetpack game than it does a traditional boots on the ground. The difference between a World War II and a Black Ops 4 is way more different than the difference, I would say, between a Black Ops 4 and an Infinite Warfare, for example, in terms of pacing and in terms of like the kind of abilities and the kind of I guess the skills as a player you need to thrive in a Black Ops 4 is probably similar to the skills you need to thrive in a jetpack game, rather than compared to World War II. World War II was a lot slower. It was much more head glitch based. We'll have a look at some actual statistics to back this up in a second here, which I think you guys will find interesting. And just to compare exactly what happened last year to our cracked out superstars to what they turned into this year, and whether that we can expect to see similar things moving onwards. Maybe you could argue that Modern Warfare, if you guys have played the alpha, is more similar to a Ghosts than it is to a World War II, but I would say that it's a pretty similar comparison. World War II is a relatively slow-paced game, and Modern Warfare may even be slightly faster paced than what we've seen. There has been this little movement thing you can do where you can double sprint and then jump around a corner, but I think they've got rid of that to some degree, or they've, you know, the movement I showed you Shotzi doing, if you guys remember that, where he was just jumping around the map. They're adding some sort of jump stamina, I guess, so you can't just constantly bunny hop around the map like he was doing. So it won't play incredibly fast. I would say it will be somewhat similar to World War II. If you guys disagree, feel free to let me know. And of course, 5v5 may change things. When you have a 5v5 game, it's automatically going to play somewhat faster paced, and people are still going to be flying around corners to bait out for their team, just like they were in World War II and in Black Ops 4. However, what I would say is that in Black Ops 4, given the faster pace of the game and also the higher health is what I was really going for, a guy like Dylan, a guy like Simp, whatever, he can fly around a corner and potentially even win the first gunfight if he hits all his shots, because it takes like 6 shots to kill with the SORG. The guy who is pre-aiming Dylan coming around the corner, and they miss a couple bullets, Dylan can snap on him and take him out. I can't speak today. However, in a game which is a 3-shot kill, for example, if that guy hits the first 2 bullets, Dylan really has no chance in turning on that guy and picking up that kill, even though he's the first man in. Which is why I think there will be struggles here. Now, head glitches were a factor in Black Ops 4, however, given the sliding you could do and the pace you had and the fact that you had really high health, it meant that head glitches weren't as important as they have been in previous games. Let's have a look through these top 10 then real quick. So this is from V-Line Man. Like if you enjoy the video, subscribe if you're new as always. I'll probably already be going for 5 minutes at this point. My brain's on a mad one. So yeah, top 10 rated players from this season. Look at the amount of guys that we have as these like cracked out superstars, I guess. Dylan is definitely one of them. Simp is definitely one of them. Dashi isn't really one of them, I'd say, compared to his playstyle in World War II. I wouldn't really put him in this category, but you kind of can. Envoy is one of them. Hook is one of them. Abizi is one of them. Priester is one of them. So out of the top 10 rated players, like, what is that? Like 6 of these are like your incredibly fast-paced, fly around a corner, SMG type players. We didn't see that in World War II. Let's have a look at what we did see. Okay, so let's make this smaller. this is CoD Champs. So a similar idea. These are the players with the highest adjusted KDs at Champs. Simp, GodRx, Dashi, Saints, Arcetes, Hook, Abizi, Celium, Octane, Aqua, Scump. So a lot of these guys, really fast-paced players, as to be expected. Let's look back then at World War II, which we would expect to be, or at least I would expect to be, somewhat similar to what we expect this upcoming Modern Warfare season to look like. These are your players that are dominating the Respawn KDs and the S&D KDs. Methods, Slasher, Dashi, Octane, Formal, Assault, Dens, Arcetes, Dens, Crimsix, Wuskin, Parasite, Rated. It takes you until like 12 before you don't have an AR anymore. Like all of these pretty much were main assault rifles last year. Crimsix towards the end of the year, he was like using an SMG, but pretty much all of these players, Dashi of course last year, remember, was the main assault rifle on the teams that he was on. All of these guys, main assault rifles. In S&D a little bit different because, we have some snipers in here, but still pretty much most of these guys used ARs almost all the time. Shox is up here as well. Gunless used whatever he needed to. But look, if we look down to Kenny, who was probably the player of the year last year, almost in my opinion, undoubtedly the player of the year. So damn good with the PPSH. He was probably the most cracked out player we had last year in terms of his playstyle, the way he played and whatever. He's down here on the entire season at a 1.07 in Respawn and a 1.10 in Search. It just shows, being that SMG player in World War II, when you had a relatively faster time to kill and slower movement speed and also 4v4 to some degree, it really restricted the abilities you could have with even the best SMGs in the game. Very few SMGs in these top KDs. So therefore, even if, what I would suggest, this is the way I think of it, I think that the players coming into next season, the Simps, the Dylans, whatever, they're not going to lose any talent. Call of Duty is Call of Duty. However, the play style of the game will probably mean that they will have difficulties reaching the same height in terms of kill-death ratio. They might be simply as good a player as they have been in previous years, in Black Ops 4 for example, but Dylan and Simp, whatever, they can fly around a corner, but they're going to have more difficulty getting a two-piece from that flying around a corner than Dylan was doing in this year's game because of the time to kill and other factors like that. And because the movement will probably be slower, and because you'll be running into aim down sights with a very fast time to kill, I think that'll maybe have a pretty damn big impact as it did in World War II. Now, the other part to this question is how good will the experienced type players that weren't so good in Black Ops 4 be in the new game? This is a real discussion that happened into World War II. A lot of former pros, even the likes of like Stainville, Gunshi, Embos, these guys coming back that hadn't played since like Ghosts, saying, okay, back to boots on the ground, this is my year. Now, there's a couple of really big names that are still in competitive play that have done really well, which I think this category probably fits best, and that is the likes of Aches and the likes of JCap. Those are the two guys that we really think about when we think, okay, tactical, on-the-ground shooter. These guys are very solid players, know how to win, but in a really fast-paced game, they don't have the same movement, they don't have the same aim, they don't have the same sensitivity to keep up with some of the really fast guys. So Aches here, this is at Champs, I believe, had a 0.75 KD, not spectacular at all. Jacob had a pretty damn good Champs overall with a 0.93 KD, but not great by any means. These were their performances in the World War II season by contrast. Now, a lot of players who are looking to pick up a franchise team, I think they will be looking quite a lot at World War II performances and even before that than they will at Black Ops 4, because Black Ops 4 will play as a completely different title, and it's no secret that even though Aches and JCap may have the same level of raw Call of Duty ability across titles, some CODs just suit different playstyles better than others. And I don't think that Aches and Jacob have fallen off as players between World War II and between Black Ops 4. I still think they've probably got the same level of individual ability, maybe slightly reduced. They're now a couple of years older, but even in World War II, they were pretty, they were on the older echelon of players. Nowadays, it's still the same thing, but I don't really think they've lost a step. Clayster's like 27, and he's still putting up 1 KDs and winning world championships and winning, CDL finals. I don't think that Aches and JCap fell off as players between World War II and Black Ops 4. And I think that they have a good chance to bounce back to similar performances here, because Aix and JCap, this is in Respawn KD, holding at a pretty damn solid, pretty much dead on 1.0 KD. In Search and Destroy, JCap was a bit lower, in Search and Destroy, Aix was a little bit higher, but on the whole, these guys were very average players, very like, this season, I would argue that Aix and JCap pretty much were below average players, right? In Black Ops 4, I think it's difficult to argue otherwise, but in World War II, they were dead average, and with the teammates they have, and with the leadership capabilities they have, they are very strong players. And of course, JCap and Aix both won championships in that game. Aix on Evil Geniuses won the World Championship. JCap on Luminosity won Call of Duty World League Birmingham, I believe, with Octane, John, and Slacked, I think was the squad. So they both won championships in that season, and they both didn't win championships in the Black Ops 4 season, and they did it with their leadership capabilities in World War II, but also being a solid player, being a solid 1.0 player. So, I think that's what will happen again. They might not go all the way back to, 1.0 or whatever, but they should perform, I would say, better than they did in the Black Ops 4 season, I would suggest. Now, Assaults is a similar thing. If we look back at this standings up here, Assault is number 6 in overall Respawn KD for the World War II season at a 1.14, a 1.11 in Search and Destroy as well. Pretty damn solid on the whole. And he does this tweet saying that, with some players already being signed in this first week, which is pretty exciting stuff for us, may have some news on the horizon. There's a possibility this may be your last chance to get the MVP World Champion of the last slow and tactical Call of Duty. Reminder to message me directly or whatever. So, interesting how Assault phrases this, of course. In World War II, he was a monster with the bar, I believe it was called, on Saint-Marie-du-Mont. Like, he would absolutely destroy people. And there are some players like this that haven't had the success on Black Ops 4, whether that is because they're fallen off as individual players or whether it is because the game doesn't suit them as much. I would tend to favour the latter. So my overall conclusions really is that the cracked out players, the super fast paced guys, the likes of Dylan also, he did play at Champs at the end of the World War II season. He had like a 1.25 at Champs, so he was a monster there. And I think Simp on the whole is an incredibly smart and talented player. Like, Simp has great composure. He really understands how to play the game. He might be a cracked out type player, but I think he could definitely adjust his style. I do think, though, that there are some players maybe that will have difficulty adjusting their super fast-paced style for the slower-paced game. I think it's possible that that will impact some players' performance. I think that some players have different skill sets, right? Some players' skill sets suit Black Ops 4, some players' skill sets suit a slower game like a World War II or potentially a Modern Warfare if it plays similar this season. Therefore, you will probably see some variations in performance, but also you will see some variations in terms of how the game actually plays itself. Because it's going to have a faster time to kill, because it's going to be 5v5, you're going to need one guy to just go in first and basically be the bait. The bait player in this season, in the the Black Ops 4 season, whatever I'm on about, was the likes of Dylan, was Abizi, these kind of guys. Now this season they could do really, really well on that role because they were so damn good at aiming. They could fly in a hill, immediately regen their health as soon as they take a couple of bullets, and then fly out, hit all their shots and win the gunfights. That's not going to happen in this year's game. There's probably not going to be, I'm just picturing like frequency hardpoint, flying into the hill first, maybe getting to the cylinder, hitting the regen, then re-challenging the guys that come from mid. That kind of situation is not going to happen in this year's game, which means that the Dylans and the Abizis of the world that are flying in first, they're basically going to be dead meat. No matter how good they are, no matter how good their aim is, going to be pretty much impossible for them to do much as they did in Black Ops 4. Which means that they might not drop off as individual players, but you probably will see some sort of alteration in the KDs to see the assault rifles start to really stack up at the top once again, because those are the guys that can post up on the head glitches and bait out their SMGs. A guy like Dylan, a guy like Kenny, if he uses an SMG again, a guy like Priester, a guy like Abizi, a guy like Simp, can be incredibly impactful players and be really good at the game, but they won't have the same stat point. They can be a really valuable player, they can drop a 1.0 KD, and possibly be the best player on the server given the role they are playing. In Black Ops 4, they would have a 1.3 playing the same role equally as well, but that's the difference between the games. That's my conclusion. Wonder if you guys agree. Like if you did enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.